Before we jump into today's conversation, I wanted to share something important. Autism affects more families today than ever before. According to the CDC's latest data, about 1 in 31 children in the United States has been identified with autism spectrum disorder, and boys are 3 times as likely as girls to receive a diagnosis. If you've noticed differences in your child's communication, social interaction, play, or development, trust your instincts. Early evaluation and early intervention can make a huge and meaningful difference. Talk with your pediatrician if you have any concerns. He or she can help guide you through the next steps. Today's episode is not about fear. It's about awareness and supporting families who are navigating this conversation. We hope this conversation helps you feel informed, encouraged, and a little less alone.
Oh boy, here we go, raising sons and watching them grow. Every story, every win, we're in this life through thick and thin. From first steps to letting go, we're cheering loud, we are front row. Welcome to the movement, come along, where all boy moms belong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MOOBment. I am the creator of the MOOBment and your host, Laurie Ann, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. This show is special, and that is because our guest is very special. It's a funny thing because we have many authors, many well-known people on the podcast, and I've spoken to moves lately, people that I run into when I'm out and about, and several of them had said, when are you getting an ordinary move? Like just one of us to come and tell it like it is. And so I set out to do that. I went on Instagram and I said, I'm going to look at some of the people who are following us and go out there and let me find an ordinary move. And you know what? I think there are none. Because I think every one of us is absolutely extraordinary. And my guest today is one of those extraordinary women and extraordinary moves. And with that, I would like to welcome Christin Elisa to our show today. Welcome to the MOOBment, Christin.
Hi, thank you, Laurie. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is very nice to have you here, and we are all anxious to talk to you and hear your story and your journey. And why don't you start by telling us why we are able to call you a moob, a mother of only boys.
I am a mother of only 4 boys. And my oldest is 20. My second oldest is 18, and he is on the autism spectrum. My third is 13, and my baby is going to be 9 next week. And I call him my baby because he's the baby.
That's okay, because you want to know something, Christin? My baby is 32, and he is still my baby.
Right.
They're all my babies, so
They
I get
are.
that.
They are. Yeah.
They always will be, so that I get that. So let me ask you, before we go into each of your sons, how has being a mother of only boys shaped you into the person who you are right now? Just the fact that you had boys, you did not have girls. How do you think that's influenced who you've become?
I think it made me tough. I think with girls, they're a different breed. And I always heard any mom that had like a girl and a boy, would have both, would say the boys are so much easier. And they would say, oh, the girls, I would pick boys over girls any day. But I think with girls, you have to be a little bit more delicate with the way you handle them, with the way you talk to them, with feelings maybe sometimes. I mean, my boys, don't get me wrong, their feelings can get hurt. they're empathetic. They do have feelings, but I think it just made me tough. It made me feel like, I'm raising 4 boys who will one day be men. And not to get like stereotypical or anything, but it's a rough world out there. And I see it as my kids like get older and they're in school, and I see how the boys talk to each other, and how they like talk about other girls. And the only thing I can think of is that it made me stronger in my, not like physicality, but in like mentally. It just made they made me mentally stronger. Because they're active. And you go from like the age ranges of my boys are so drastic. My 20-year-old and a 9-year-old. I feel like I'm constantly being pulled in all these different directions emotionally.
Right. And as moms, we do that. We navigate lots of different things. How many boys we have, the ages of them, the fact that we don't have girls in the house. We talk a lot on the show about how there's some mixed messaging out there in the world these days for boys, because we've gone through a female revolution pretty much. Girls can be anything. Girls can do anything. Boys are getting a little bit of a mixed message. They feel they need to be tough. But on the other hand, we went through a Me Too movement, and we went through messages that were telling the boys that they needed to be more sensitive and kinder while not being considered a mama's boy. We're trying to teach our boys how to communicate better. And so much of that is on them. It's on all of the parents and society, but it does feel like a lot of it is on the moms, because as women, stereotypically, we tend to be the communicators. And I think take it upon ourselves to fulfill that role in helping our sons through all of this. And on top of everything, you then mentioned that your second son, I believe, Bash, I think his name is, Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian, we call him Bash.
I love that. Was diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
We actually opened the show before you came on the show and disclosed some statistics about autism and how prevalent it is in the United States these days, all over the world, I'm sure. Yeah. And in particular with boys, that boys are diagnosed more than 3 times as much as girls.
Yes.
As far as autism. I'm sure you are extremely well educated on this. So why don't you just explain to us what you know about autism, as well as your personal journey, and when you found out, when you suspected that your son might be going through some type of issues.
Yeah. So when Sebastian was born, he was just like any normal baby. He was colicky, but as he grew, he reached all his milestones. He walked. Before he was a year old, I think he was walking at 9 months. So again, very active. He's a boy, and right. All my boys actually walked before they could talk. They walked before they had teeth in their mouth. They were active from the beginning.
We hear that from a lot of moobs. We do. Yeah. It's biology. I mean, it's not with everybody, but there are biological differences.
Yeah. And he just, as I guess at about 2 years old, took him to the pediatrician for his well visit, and they want to know how many words he has. And I'm like, 0, 0. He doesn't have any words. So they diagnosed developmental delay. That's how it starts. Developmental delay. And so they referred me to early intervention. Early intervention came out to my house. They evaluated him and said, yeah, he could definitely use services. And I knew, and I knew that there was something off because he wasn't talking. He wasn't pointing. And gradually, as time went on and he started eating solid foods, he wasn't accepting certain foods. Mm-hmm. So then it became, I was then worried about like his diet and that he wasn't eating and how is he going to grow and thrive and all of this stuff.
How old was he at this point?
He was diagnosed when he was 3. Okay. So after doing everything we needed to do with early intervention, they were just kind of like, you have to take him for a medical diagnosis, because they told me that they suspected he was on the autism spectrum. And I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
This was 15 years ago. I knew what autism was, but in my mind, autism to me was like, I remember being a little girl and seeing older adults with autism, and they wouldn't speak, and they looked like, mentally disabled, and in my mind I was thinking, is that what he's going to be when he gets older? I didn't know. I didn't know. Is he going to need me to do everything for him? And that's all the stuff that goes through your mind when you hear the words autism. So we brought him, we made an appointment to get him evaluated through CHOP. It's the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. That's where we took him. And we got the diagnosis, of course, because they gave him all these little projects to do, and he didn't do anything the way they wanted him to do it.
And you knew it in your gut, Christin, didn't you?
I knew it.
There's intuition there. And you had an older child, so you had
an older child, exactly, who was doing all the things and was talking and everything. And you're just sitting there and you're watching this evaluation and you're like, just put the block on top. Just do it. And he didn't. And he didn't point, and he didn't look in the direction that they would point. And there were all these little things that they did. So at the very end of the evaluation, the doctor, calls us all in together, and she tells us, your son has autism spectrum disorder. And I said, well, what does that mean? And she said, well, she said, it means that there are certain things he won't be able to do. And I said, well, where is he on the spectrum? I mean, where is he? Is he severe? And she said, well, think of it like this. Think of it like a gray scale, very, very light gray to a very dark gray. She said, your son falls somewhere in the middle.
And they could tell that even at that early age. I mean,
Right. And so I was like, okay, so if he's in the middle, what next? What do I do? Where do I go? And she said, well, keep doing the therapies with early intervention and come back and see me in a year.
And we should tell people who don't know that CHOP is Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and one of the most well-respected hospitals out there, right?
Right. And, I left there with more questions than I had answers. And I left there and I felt like I was walking through a tunnel. Mm-hmm. And I just remember hearing the words over and over again. He has autism spectrum disorder. And she handed me a pamphlet for adult diapers. And she told me that it would be a lifesaver one day. And I said, well, he's never going to be potty trained? And she said, most children on the spectrum are not. So
I didn't know anybody at this point. You didn't know anybody who had an autistic child. Okay.
I knew no one. I was so alone. Of course, I had my husband, I had my family, I had my mom, and my husband's parents. My family was a was a huge support system for me, but they didn't know anything about it either.
Right.
So that was it. We got our medical diagnosis and off we went. We stayed with early intervention. Thankfully, the next thing I needed was an educational diagnosis. So I went to the CCIU. It was Chester County Intermediate Unit. And that's where we got our educational diagnosis. And again, he was 3 years old. He was not potty trained yet, but I made sure that I got him potty trained.
Good for you.
Yeah. So at 3.5 years old, he was potty trained. He went to preschool, and for, I would say, the first 6 months of preschool, I was driving him in every day, and tears and screaming and crying, and eventually he walked right in, and we became really good friends with the teacher. It's funny, everybody throughout my journey, our journey, we have become so close with. They're almost like family to us, and we've always kept in touch. And so Sebastian's preschool teacher, I still keep in touch with her. And she was the one who told me when he was a little boy, because I told her about this doctor visit, and I told her that they told me he would never be potty trained. They also
Right.
told me that he would most likely never speak. He would he would never read or write. So
Did they
these
tell you
are
anything positive?
nothing. They just wanted to prepare me for the absolute worst. And they did. And that's why I left there so discouraged. So I had this wonderful team of teachers and support who didn't have that mentality. And their mentality was, we'll work with him and we'll see what he can do. And that's what we did. So
That's
every day
amazing.
I drove him in, and one day the teacher said to me, "Did you ever think about putting him on the bus?" And I was like, "He's only 3. I can't put him on the bus." And she was like, "You can." And I said, "I can't." Her name is Amanda. I said, "Amanda, I can't put him on the bus. He's a little, he's a baby. He's so little." And he was still going to school in a pull-up. I still had him in a pull-up. And she's like, "Why do you put the pull-ups on him?" And I said, "Well, what if he has an accident on the bus?" And she said, "So what?" And I was
Right.
like,
There are a lot of 3-year-olds that have accidents on the bus. A lot of 3-year-olds.
I said,
And
I never thought
4-year-olds.
about it that way. I never thought about, like, so what? And
Right.
so I kind of felt like it was, I had a few moments throughout my motherhood where I kind of went, yes, so what? So that's why I said, like, motherhood, being a mother of boys, made me tough. It made me tough, I guess, in the sense that I could handle anything. I knew once I did that, and he went on the bus, and that boy never had an accident. Ever. We put him into bed with underpants on. Never an accident. And you know what I did not too long ago? I called that doctor back, and I left a
for you.
voicemail. And I told her, you don't remember me, but I remember you. And I remember all the things you told me that my son wouldn't do. And I just want to tell you, he just graduated from high school with honors.
I have the
And that's
chills.
what happened. No. But it's okay. But and that's a mother's instinct. That is a mom doing things that she's scared of, that she's very unsure of. And she does it anyway because she knows that somehow, some way, it's going to make her kids stronger. So
And that's a mother's intuition, but it's more than that. It's a mother's love.
it's
And a mother's love is endless and
Endless.
boundless. And yeah, and you will do anything for your children. And, you know, when you say it made you tough, you were responsible for being his advocate for many, many, many years. And when you think about how we all feel about our children and the need to defend them and support them and be there for them, but you had it tenfold. And that does make you tough.
It does.
But
Tough
I can
skin.
see that you may be tough, but you're kind of a little soft also, and
Oh,
you've got that love, and you can just feel it from
yeah.
what you say. So
Yeah, I mean, I can cry in a heartbeat.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm tough. I'm tough,
Well, maybe
but
some of those are happy tears, yes?
they are. Yeah, they are a lot of happy tears because we are now in a place that I never dreamed that we would be. I never thought that I would be sitting on the other side of this and going, wow,
Yeah.
like sighing it's like a sigh of relief, like, we did it. And then, there's still some things, he's not driving, but I don't know if he will one day. He might not, but
You know what, Kristen? I mean, look, there things just, come into play and are developed. We have cars now that drive themselves.
Yes.
You just never know. People say to me all the time, actually, my mother used to say, it's one of the things she used to say is when there's life, there's hope. And that every day we are seeing medical breakthroughs and breakthroughs in technology and in products that make lives better. And, who knows, maybe 15 years ago, there were not things out there. I mean, we didn't have cars that could drive themselves. We didn't have electric cars that I know of back then. So, he may not need to drive. He may choose to live in a city one day. There are a lot of people who don't drive,
Right.
and be just fine.
Right.
You adapt to what your needs are.
Exactly. And I used to be so caught up in the milestones
Mhm.
but I think just having a son on the spectrum has taught me that you don't measure all of your children with the same ruler. And the milestones, it's not important. It's not. Raising happy kids, I think, is truly the most important thing because I see so many adolescents who are depressed and
Yeah.
have anxiety and have to take medication. And I see my son, all my boys, happy and thriving. And it doesn't matter to me what they're doing, whether they're driving or whether they're the best athlete or whatever it may be. As long as they're happy, I'm happy. And I don't think you can ask for anything better than that is having happy children.
I think that's all of us mothers want for our children. I think you summed it up perfectly.
Yeah.
You mentioned your other 3 sons. I'm sure that this affected their lives as well. Tell us about that. Tell us about how it has shaped them as humans, as people, as brothers, as family members.
Yeah,
How do
I
you?
mean, it shaped them in ways that can only make a mother's heart just melt. My boys are, so my son, Noah, he's 13. He is, I call him like my indigo child. And he's very empathetic. He's very intuitive. And they had a situation at school where there was a boy doing some strange things that he was sitting next to. And my son he had a problem with it. Noah had a problem with it. And I said, well, why don't you talk to the teacher? Talk to your teacher about it and just ask if you can move your seat. Mm-hmm. So Noah went to the teacher to tell him what this boy was doing, how he was acting. But before Noah said anything, he asked the teacher, he said, I don't want to be rude, but does he have autism? And the teacher said, I don't think so. And because Noah said, well, I don't want to be rude and I don't want to hurt his feelings, but can I move my seat? So in Noah's mind, the way this boy was acting made him think he was special needs. And he didn't want to hurt this other boy's feelings. So before he acted out on this boy, he went to the teacher quietly because he wanted to know the full story. Like, oh, because if he does, I understand. In other words, like he
It shows
understands.
empathy. It shows maturity.
Yeah. The hard part too was making sure that we gave each of them equal time, because Sebastian did require a lot of extra care and attention.
So how
And
did you do that? How did you find the time and give each the attention? Not only because you had a special needs child, but because they are so spaced apart in age, so they had very different needs. So
Right.
how do you do that and still find a little time maybe for yourself? And how do you do it all? Let's give some of those moobs out there who are listening some advice, who have boys bouncing off the walls and things going on in their lives, and maybe a special needs child or situation, because you seem to have come through it, or are still coming through it with grace and poise, and you must have some advice for these moms on how to tackle it. Do you have help? Do you lean on people? What do you do?
My husband, I'm without a doubt. They say that the divorce rate when you have a child with special needs, I don't know what it is, but I know I've heard that the divorce rate is pretty high, because there is a lot of stress that comes with it. But the thing about my husband is that we really balance each other out. He is the perfect balance for me, and I'm the perfect balance for him, because when he's losing it, when he's going over the edge, I'm the one that goes, all right, like I'll take over. So we kind of like tag team, where it's like, okay, you need the break, I'm going to step in. And there was a time where I had to take Sebastian to a eating school. It was a feeding clinic because he wasn't eating, and that's a whole nother story. But that took a lot out on me emotionally and mentally. And I would bring Xavier along to all of those appointments because he was just a little boy then too. So
right. So you
my
did have to
husband
find
had
time for each of them
right,
somehow.
right, and that's what we would do. So my husband would spend a lot of time with Xavier outside, having a catch, going for walks, doing all those things, going to the movies. We would spend time, and there were days where I would tell Xavier, I'm not going to send you to school today. We're going to play hooky, and Mom's going to take you out for lunch. My husband was working from home, or if I could get a babysitter, or when Sebastian was in the CCIU, I would send him to school, and I would keep Xavier home. So I would do little things like that, and I'd be like, where do you want to go for lunch? And we would go, get whatever you want. We'll get some ice cream. And those are the little things that we did, and it made him feel like, wow, like Mom kept me home from school today, and I didn't have to go to school, and we did something special. So it was just little moments like that. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be these big grand gestures. They can be those little moments that just make a little boy just go, yes, like I don't have to go to school today. I get to go eat French fries and ice cream with Mom. And so
right. Or I got to stay up a little later in the evening and read some extra books or whatever. An extra couple of hugs and some attention is
popcorn
really
in
what
bed with a movie. Simple. And it was in those quiet moments that, like, I remember him saying to me, this is the best, or you're the best mom in the whole world. And what did I do? Not to me, it was nothing, but to him, it was everything.
So your advice to these moms is take a breath, small gestures, try to make time for each child individually.
Yeah, and you're doing better than you think.
And celebrate the little moments, because they really do matter. I know when I look back now, I think if I had my choice, I would wish for just more regular days with my boys being young, not really a vacation or any kind of grand event.
Right.
It's those everyday moments where you're exhausted and have them all in the bathtub and you don't know how you're going to make it another moment, but they're special times, and we're very lucky to be moms. So tell me about you, because it sounds like Christin gives to everybody. You are super mom, super moob, but you need to take some care of yourself. I know you pivoted at one point. You mentioned you were home with your boys and you started a business. So tell us about the business and how that relates to the fact that you have a child on the autism spectrum and what you did with that.
So about 7 years ago, it was an accident. I'm not a jewelry designer. I never went to school to learn how to make everything. I'm a self-taught jewelry designer. And it happened because my son Noah, when he was 6 years old, had a bracelet and it broke. And he was very upset and he asked me to fix it. So I said, I'll try to fix it. I put it on the counter in a plastic Ziploc bag, and there it sat for a very long time. And one day he said, Mom, did you ever fix that bracelet for me? And I said, no. I said, let me look into it. So I looked into it, and a lot of trial and error, long story short, fixed the bracelet, made it for him, and he was as happy as could be. So as we were fixing his bracelet, it was his idea, and he said, Mom, why don't we make these for all the mothers in our family? He was little in the way he talked. He said, why don't we make these for all the mothers in our family for Mother's Day? And I said, that's a great idea. Let's do that. So we went online and he picked out the beads for them, and we made bracelets. And we gave them out on Mother's Day. And my mom and my grandmom wore their bracelets faithfully every day. And when my grandmom was alive, my mom would take my grandmother to get her hair done. And when they went to get their hair done, the girls at the salon saw their bracelets and wondered where they got them. My mom said, my daughter made these for us. And they wanted to know if I sold them. And my mom said, yes, she sells them. And I said, Mom. She called me up. She said, all the girls at the salon, they want a bracelet. Now all of a sudden I'm making bracelets for all these girls in the salon. And then they wanted to sell them in the salon because the customers saw their bracelets. So then they wanted to sell them. So I said to my mom, actually, I said, I can't do this unless it gives me meaning. I'm just not making jewelry for the sake of it. It has to mean something. And these bracelets had evolved into something for a woman to feel, or something that she has been through in her life, or if she needs strength, a reminder of her courage, or even a reminder of a loved one who had passed away. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We are going to move ahead here because, as you know, we have a segment on the podcast called MOOBment. And I did put out a prompt to some followers, some subscribers of ours. For those of you who have not yet subscribed to the MOOBment, it's free. You go to our website, www.themoobment.com. You can join for free. We have giveaways for our subscribers and additional information and special things. So go ahead and do that. But we reached out to some of our subscribers, and we asked, based on what we were doing on this episode, who would have some personal questions for Christin. And I sifted through them, and there were several. And then I got one actually just this morning that I decided I was going to choose for today. And so we're going to move ahead to our Moob Mail.
Oh boy, it's that time. Ooh, mail's here. Your voice meets mine. From your heart straight to our trail. Let's open up that mail.
And this today is from a listener, and let me just open this up and see what her name was. Her name is Franny, and she is from Ohio. And Franny wrote, Dear Laurie Ann, people love to say that social media isn't real, and sometimes they're right. I've seen the perfectly posed family photos, the spotless houses, the moms who somehow look put together while I'm just hoping everyone brushed their teeth before school. But I also have a son with autism. When he was first diagnosed, I felt completely alone. Then one night, I stumbled across another autism mom on Instagram. She shared with me her meltdowns, victories, and therapy appointments, the sleepless nights, and the little moments no one else seemed to understand. Before long, I found dozens more. Those women became my lifeline. They are my friends. They taught me, they encouraged me, they celebrated my son, and on the hardest days, they reminded me that I wasn't walking this journey by myself. It made me realize that while social media can sometimes make us feel like we don't measure up, it can also introduce us to the people who truly get us. And that's exactly how I feel about the movement. I'm raising a child with autism, but I'm also a moob raising 3 boys. And listening to the podcast has reminded me that while our stories are different, so many of our emotions are the same. And I love being part of the movement. My question for your guest is about social media. How do we use it in a way that was meant to be used? Not to compare our lives, but to build the kinds of communities that remind us that we're never alone. From Franny in Ohio. What do you think, Christin? I don't know if you are involved in a community online about your son who is on the autism spectrum, and does that help you at all? And how do you reply to Franny?
I actually posted something not too long ago about this very thing, and I said, you know, when my son was diagnosed with autism, I didn't have Instagram. That was 15 years ago. I couldn't get on Instagram and find communities of people. I couldn't find other moms going through the same thing. I really did feel alone.
Yeah.
But now, opening up, you know, this world where everybody has an opinion. There are a lot of mean people out there, and I have posted things about my son and stories about my son and have gotten some very mean, awful comments.
That's awful.
And
Awful.
so it is awful. And so what I do there is, well, I block them. They're gone. So, because it's my page, and there's no negativity on my page. I do post about the hard things. A lot of stuff that I post about the hard things happened 15 years ago. So you have to remember, for me, I don't have a lot of that on video. I don't have the videos of Sebastian screaming in the eating therapy, screaming, throwing up, gagging. I sat behind a 2-way window where I watched him, and I watched this little boy gag, scream, throw up. It was the worst 2 weeks of my life.
Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine.
All I wanted to do was run in there and take him out. But the reason he was there was for me to save him. I was saving my son.
Right.
I don't have footage of that. I don't have video of that. But there are parents out there now that can show those things of when their children are little and those meltdowns. And, you know, I think it's so important because it helps other moms feel like they aren't alone, and it helps them see that they're not the only ones that are walking that path. And if you reach out to them with questions, I hope that they would get back to you and tell you what they did for their child that maybe helped them.
Yes, it really is great to have a community of like-minded people who really get it and understand.
And I think a lot too is that we spend so much time trying to get our children to adapt into our world, but we need people to adapt into their world and see the world through their eyes as well. And that is a really important part in all of this is being understanding and accepting.
Acceptance and changing your mindset sometimes.
You have
Absolutely.
to.
Yeah, you
Yes,
do.
you have to. But
Part of
Franny
being a mom
is,
and
yeah,
having
and
an open mind.
exactly. And I appreciate Franny's question and social media and all of that. But I think social media, it gets a bad rap
Right.
sometimes,
But
but
there
I
is
think
some
there's a
good
lot of
out there.
positive. Yeah, I think there's a lot of
There's a lot of
positive.
positive. I know
Yeah,
a lot of people who, not necessarily in your situation, but who've had other challenges, who have found community and found wonderful advice and resources through other people going through a
yes.
similar situation.
And
So,
resources is a huge thing because
right.
you can find resources through Instagram. And in fact, um, when I started the Lady of Knots, that was the other thing, was that I wanted to help. I wanted to help people. It was all about helping people, always helping people, and connecting with people. And I actually connected and partnered with a foundation, a charity called Documenting Hope, and we made a bracelet for them and to help support their mission of helping children who are on the autism spectrum and with chronic disease. So we sold a bunch of bracelets and raised some money for them so they
That's
can
awesome.
keep researching, and that's what they do. And they're a great resource. They're a
I
great
love
resource
hearing
for
that,
parents.
to turn something into something positive. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So let before we sign off here, let's tell everybody where if they'd like to buy a bracelet, if they'd like to support an organization, where do they find you, and what's the best way to go ahead and do that and see what you have?
So they can go to my website. It's www.theladyofknots.com. It's ladyofknots.com.
And we will put it on our website as well, so people
Okay,
can
that's
access
wonderful.
it,
Thank
and
you
on
so
our
much.
Instagram and
And then
Facebook and everything else.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I post a lot. And I actually have a giveaway going on right now where you can win. I have this beautiful stack of bracelets, and I'm doing a giveaway for moms, because
Awesome.
moms need to feel good too. And I think sometimes it's just a little something just to brighten up their day. So that's what I like to do. So I have a giveaway going on right now. So if they follow me and do all this stuff, then I'll pick a random winner. And but I post a lot of stuff just about my life, about my boys, and sometimes specifically about autism. But it's just like my life and a mom, and
Can relate, because
yes, and they can
you may
relate.
not be an ordinary mom, Kristen, to come back full circle. You are very extraordinary, but we are glad to be celebrating you. And I think there are a lot of extraordinary moms and moobs out there who are glad that they've gotten to know you. And I'm sure we'll reach out, and maybe we can encourage you to do some, I don't know, maybe blue or whatever bracelets for moobs, because maybe they would like something to remind themselves they're not the only mother of only boys without a daughter. And we have a lot to be grateful for. And, it'd be nice to look down at your wrist and remember that every time.
Yeah,
So
have a reminder. Yeah, definitely let me know. I'm your girl for that. I would
you
love
got
that.
it. You got
Yeah.
it. Well, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to encourage everybody. We will put Kristen's information on our website and our social media to follow her and check out those beautiful bracelets. And appropriate to our conversation, I sign off every single episode that we do here with the same words, which are: hug your boys, trust your instincts, and remember that where all boy moms and those who love us belong is right here.